Hey everyone, it's me, Miss Crichton. Today's focus question is: how did some enslaved people free themselves? For today's Do Now, think about a time you or someone you know resisted unfair treatment. If you're struggling to think of an example, remember that there are many forms of resistance. Resistance can be political, cultural, or personal. You can even resist inside your own mind. Pause this video now while you respond to this Do Now. Today we're focusing on how enslaved people resisted. One of the ways they resisted was through violent slave revolts. Historians have documented at least 250 slave uprisings in U.S. history. With one exception, all of these slave revolts eventually failed. This was because slave owners used their wealth and political power to organize a system of violence to keep slavery in place. The only rebellion that was at least partly successful was the Seminole Uprising, probably because the Black Seminoles had indigenous and Mexican allies to back them up. Another way enslaved people resisted was by running away. They were known as fugitive slaves. The historian Eric Foner estimates that around 30,000 people escaped from the start of American slavery in 1619 up until the start of the Civil War in 1860. That's a lot, but it's a small number compared to the 4 million people who were enslaved in 1860. After reading the slave codes yesterday, you can probably understand why so few people successfully escaped. Slave patrols were like early police forces who patrolled the South looking for any black person traveling without a pass. And slave catchers were like bounty hunters sent to track down fugitive slaves and return them to their owners. In 1850, the U.S. passed a law that basically forced northern states to act as slave catchers. This meant that it was no longer safe for fugitive slaves to remain in northern cities like New York. Instead, fugitive slaves had to keep going all the way north to Canada or all the way south to Mexico to find safety. The Underground Railroad was a network of people who helped fugitive slaves escape. It was not a literal railroad. It was a loose network of people, mostly black people. One of the most famous conductors on the Underground Railroad was Harriet Tubman, who freed herself from slavery and then made 13 more trips into the slave state of Maryland to free 70 more people. Most of the fugitive slaves who successfully escaped either lived close to the border of a free state, like Harriet Tubman, or close to a southern city like Charleston that had a large population of free black people. There, they could lie low and blend in and find someone to help them plan the next stage of their journey. Most fugitive slaves from the Deep South escaped on trains or ships with disguises and forged documents. When they arrived in New York, black dock workers directed them to abolitionists who provided them with clothing, money, a job, and passage to Canada. White abolitionists helped in this work, but the majority of people in the Underground Railroad were black, many of them former slaves themselves. One of these people was Jermaine Logan, who escaped from slavery and became the Underground Railroad King of Rochester, New York, which was full of abolitionists. Today you'll read a letter he wrote to the woman who used to own him, and then you'll create your own piece of creative writing in response. Make sure to complete all of Lesson 2 today. That's it for me. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.